This session of Parliament has been an absolute washout, marred by debates over Adani, Ambedkar, Soros, and ending in an unseemly physical scuffle between the BJP and the Congress, with both sides accusing the other of having turned violent. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Unbelievable scenes in Parliament this week, including a confrontation, as you see in the images there, between Rahul Gandhi and the BJP's Nishikant Dubey, who accused him of being a gunda. This after the BJP accused Rahul Gandhi of pushing not one but two members of Parliament, those images of those MPs from hospital. The Congress said that it was actually their elderly leader, Mr. Kharge, who was pushed around, and all of this was a distraction and a deflection from the Congress's protests over a reference made to B.R. Ambedkar by Amit Shah in his speech in Parliament. Mr. Shah said that the Congress had selectively clipped out 11 seconds from his speech and, in fact, were misrepresenting him. Meanwhile, the BJP and the Congress have both taken to the streets and have both visited police stations to file FIRs against the other. It has been a somewhat crazy culmination of Parliament, an absolute washout, with Ambedkar now occupying center stage in the latest round of ideological battles between the Congress and the BJP. Who's winning the narrative wars, and does it even matter to the average Indian voter? Let me introduce our very distinguished guest today as we look at Ambedkar, Adani, Soros, and a scuffle defining this session of Parliament. Sandip Ghose, political analyst, is with us. I always introduce him as a supporter of the Prime Minister and a qualified critic of the BJP, and we'll see what position he takes today. Hindol Sengupta, historian, author, and journalist, joins us. Hindol, it's good to see you after ages and ages, so welcome back to the program. Also joining us is Nilanjan, Mukhopadhyay, senior journalist, author, a long-time student and observer of the RSS in particular. Nilanjan, it's always good to have you with us. And also joining us is Dr. Shruti Kapila, who, of course, is a historian at Cambridge University. Welcome, everybody. What a surreal sort of week we've had. Everything from Adani to Ambedkar at the center stage of politics. One thing we can agree on, at least, is our politics is never vanilla, never dull. It might be pointless, but it's always loud and raucous. What's actually going on here, Nilanjan? I should add, which I didn't say in my introduction, that Mohan Bhagwat, the RSS chief, has just warned against new Mandir Masjid disputes. Nilanjan, it's over to you.
Well, I'll first begin with Mohan Bhagwat because that's the last question which you asked. We might forget it. This is not the first time that when he said that something like this should not be done. He had actually said a few years ago that you do not have to go around finding idol underneath every mosque in the country. This is also not the first time that he said something against the wave of violence against Muslims in the country. He had also spoken earlier, especially against hate speeches in 2021. He had spoken again. So there is a certain history of his speaking. Now, I am a bit perplexed as to why he speaks when things are not very hot. When not very hot, meaning that when it has actually happened. At the moment, there is already a Supreme Court restraint preventing other lower courts from directing surveys of various archaeological surveys of various places of worship. There is also likewise previously also there had been things when things are no longer in the news. So that is something which I don't understand. Also, when somebody says anything, after that there needs to be follow up. For instance, there were these hate speeches which were filed against several of these saints which are on the periphery of the Sangh Parivar in 2021. And nothing much has happened in terms of pursuit of cases against them. I simply don't understand that if Mr. Mohan Bhagwat and the others within the Sangh Parivar actually do not want such things to happen and vitiate the atmosphere, then why is no follow-up action taken from the law and order point of view and take action against these people? About the session, yes, I will completely agree with you that what has happened in this session is very unfortunate. We have in the last decade or so, we have seen a certain amount of vitiation in the social, at least at the social level. And now what has happened is this has actually come into politics also. Just this afternoon, I was actually thinking about this very classical film of the 70s, which was made initially in Bengali as Aponjon, and later on it was made as Mere Apne, where you had two gangs caught in a brawl and ultimately fighting over complete trivial issues, and which actually ending only after the lady, which was portrayed by Meena Kumari, at least in the Hindi film, gets killed. So this is the same thing which is happening here. It's completely unruly. I do not know why we are not, even after so many days, not seeing any truth come out. Why we have not seen the actual footage and actually a follow up of money being discovered from the seat, which is allotted to Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Why we have not seen that? All kinds of allegations only flying along.
Right.
Same thing like yesterday. It's been more than 24 hours. We still do not have the footage of what exactly happened. Nobody, the ones, the government, the BJP can actually present the truth as it has happened. But instead of that, they are just making accusations, and the other side is making accusations. And for us, we have to decide on whose side we are, and then line up
Hmm.
and just repeat what is being said by the leaders. That is what is happening. So this
Yeah.
black and white division of society is something which is terrible, and it's very unfortunate that this happened in Parliament, which is actually known for a bipartisan, work partnership for a long time on various
Uh,
issues.
but as we just saw in the images there, Parliament, or the space outside Parliament, has been a veritable battlefield with protest versus protest, and in that melee, both sides are now accusing the other of pushing the other around. I want to play out Priyanka Gandhi's bite. We'll also have Kiran Rijiju's statement. She's been at the front line of this, and she says, "My brother simply can't do this." And a lot of the commentary from the Congress has centered around the fact that the Gandhi family forgave their father's killers. So how could Rahul Gandhi ever be violent? Is that an acceptable political argument? We'll discuss that right after we listen to what Priyanka Gandhi said.
ये सरकार डरती है, सीधी सी बात है। ये सरकार अडानी जी की चर्चा से डरती है। ये किसी भी चर्चा से डरती है। अब ये जानते हैं कि इन्होंने जो किया, इनकी असली भावना निकल आई है, जो अम्बेडकर जी के प्रति इनकी असली भावना है वो निकल आई है। इसलिए अब ये अब ऑपोजिशन से डर रहे हैं, क्योंकि हम इस मुद्दे को उठा रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये इस मुद्दे से जुड़ा पूरे देश का हित है। हमारा संविधान अंबेडकर जी की देन है और इस देश की जनता की देन है और हमारी आजादी की लड़ाई की देन है, और उनका इस तरह से अपमान हिंदुस्तान नहीं सहेगा। कि कितने डेस्परेट हो गए हैं कि आज इसे एकदम झूठी बातें, झूठा एफआईआर। राहुल जी कभी किसी को पुश नहीं करेंगे। मैं उनकी बहन हूँ, इतने सालों से मैं जानती हूँ, कभी इस तरह की हरकत कभी कर ही नहीं सकते। और फ्रैंकली देश भी जानता है, देश देख रहा है कितने डेस्परेट हो गए हैं ये लोग कि इस तरह की फालतू के एफआईआर लगा रहे हैं, क्योंकि सिंपली अडानी पे चर्चा नहीं चाहते। और जो इन्होंने किया है अंबेडकर जी के साथ, जिस तरह से अपमान किया है, ये जानते हैं कि ये देश नहीं सहेगा ये अपमान। इसीलिए ये सब डिस्ट्रैक्शन है, बस यही है।
I will play out the longer sort of video of Amit Shah's speech. But Hindol, let me bring you in. Why do you think Baba Sahib Ambedkar, alongside Adani and George Soros, has become kind of the center of the latest round of political battle, and battle in the literal sense now?
But there will be this battle over Baba Sahib Ambedkar and his legacy for a long time in the future also, Barkha, for the simple reason that Narendra Modi's success, and indeed the new BJP's success, has been, in a sense, undergirded by a major shift in the voter base, especially among the so-called lower caste. Now, this is true in large parts of India, certainly true in Uttar Pradesh. And one of the great successes of Narendra Modi, as far as his politics is concerned, has been to portray himself, and talk about his caste as he did in 2014, and later on also to, showcase this entire idea that, well, from Savarkar onwards, this Hindu politics movement always wanted a unity between Hindus, and, didn't really believe in caste, doesn't believe in caste discrimination, and therefore try to own Ambedkar. Now, of course, Ambedkar had very strong things to say about RSS, but Ambedkar also had very strong things to say about Pakistan, about Islamic radicalism, and so on and so forth. Now, both sides argue about this. I have actually a bigger point to make, and if I may make it, All of this is really a farce played on us, the people of India and the people of Delhi. Delhi's AQI, even as we are doing this show, Barkha, is more than 430. We are all being poisoned in this city. Our infrastructure is slowly crumbling. Our cities have become unlivable. Our water is becoming poisoned. It is absolutely farcical that not a single parliamentarian from any party ever bothers to mention air pollution in any debate inside or outside parliament. So you will see also on Twitter, people are becoming restless. People want better growth and people want better urban lifestyle. Now, this lifestyle is deeply being impacted every day. And I think we can keep debating Ambedkar till the cows come home. And I'm happy to do so. But there are fundamental things that are going wrong in India, which we really are not being able to control at all. And I think there will be a pushback. Inflation is again high. There will be a pushback. I don't think everybody watching this debate, across the country, they're not fools. People are not fools. They know what's going on. They know this is a big joke, right? We can keep debating Ambedkar, but
And to that extent, you're saying that what's happening in Parliament is very far removed from what people are actually talking about.
Absolutely.
I do tend to actually agree. I think Parliament has become an almost sort of like a bubble, a navel-gazing universe where maybe politicians and political journalists are absorbed in this, but everyone outside of that is barely following this debate. And that's why I wonder why either side is expending so much capital on it. Before Dr. Kapila and Sandip Ghosh respond, what did Amit Shah actually say? Where did this start? And again, not the 11 seconds, but the full 1 minute odd 11 seconds. Let's take a look and come right back.
मान्यवर, अभी एक फैशन हो गया है आम्बेडकर 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 आम्बेडकर। इतना नाम अगर भगवान का लेते तो 7 जन्मों तक स्वर्ग मिल जाता। अच्छी बात है ना? सुनिए तो, सुनिए ना, आप सुनिए ना, मैं बताता हूं। हमें तो आनंद है कि आम्बेडकर का नाम लेते हैं। आम्बेडकर का नाम अभी 100 बार ज्यादा लो, परंतु साच अर्थ में आम्बेडकर जी के प्रति आपका भाव क्या है ये मैं बताता हूं। मान्यवर, आम्बेडकर जी को देश की पहली कैबिनेट से इस्तीफा क्यों दे दिया? आम्बेडकर जी ने कई बार कहा कि अनुसूचित जातियों और जनजातियों से हुए व्यवहार से मैं असंतुष्ट हूं। सरकार की विदेश नीति से मैं असहमत हूं और आर्टिकल 370 से मैं असहमत हूं। इसलिए वो छोड़ना चाहते थे। उनको आश्वासन दिया गया, आश्वासन पूरा नहीं हुआ। उन्होंने इग्नोरेंस के चलते इस्तीफा दे दिया। और एक श्री BC रॉय ने पत्र लिखा कि आम्बेडकर और राजा जी जैसे 2 महानुभाव मंत्रिमंडल छोड़ेंगे तो क्या होगा। तो नेहरू जी ने उनको जवाब में लिखा है, राजा जी के जाने से तो थोड़ा बहुत नुकसान होगा, आम्बेडकर के जाने से मंत्रिमंडल कमजोर नहीं होता है।
Now, Shruti, there are 2 parts to this debate. One is, do these issues matter to the voter today? But the second, the important and immediate question is, why is the Congress and other opposition parties protesting against Amit Shah? Yes, if you hear only the first 11 seconds where he says Ambedkar, 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 the opposition says he was not respectful. But if you hear the rest of his speech, he's actually making an argument about how Ambedkar fell out with the Congress. He makes a reference to why Ambedkar leaves the cabinet. It was over, among other reasons, the Hindu Code Bill and so on. So I think, as Hindol says, Ambedkar had differences with the RSS, absolutely, but he also had differences with the Congress. His is a complex legacy, and he spoke as not just the architect of the Indian Constitution, but also as a Dalit icon himself. Now, my question to you is, what is the protest about in your understanding when you listen to the whole video of Amit Shah?
Thank you, Barkha. Great to be back here, and greetings from Bangalore, where the air is much nicer and the weather much nicer than Delhi. I'm visiting the National Law School here, and I can tell you that the matter of Ambedkar is not trivial. It may seem trivial, it may have looked made trivial in terms of what is happening outside. I think there are 2-3 things to be said. One, that there is a reason that Ambedkar has now become, as it were, the default setting to which, in terms of Indian public debate. It is no longer Nehru. It certainly is it has never been Savarkar. And the reason is really that, the question of caste in the last 50 years, certainly 40 years of Indian democracy, has become is essential to it. And the problem really is, it's really Kanshi Ram who brings in Ambedkar to the public debate in 1982, 50 years after the failure of the Pune Pact and Gandhi. And he writes this kind of polemical book called The Chamcha Age. Now, you may say, what does it have to do with anything or the price of onions today? Well, actually, everything, because really BSP comes out of that moment. You get the first Dalit chief minister in UP. And it is really now a churning in both the national parties, which have really not been able to address the caste question, apart from in a very kind of instrumental way of creating vote banks, have not been able to really, and it's a kind of vote fast, not just for the BJP, as Hindol puts it, that the Prime Minister Modi is the one who has got a Dalit. I mean, that's not quite entirely fair, because under Jagjeevan Ram, and I'm in Karnataka. I mean, it's quite shocking to see how much of Jagjeevan Ram lives here and in southern India, that you actually have a kind of within the Congress a Dalit story. But that begins to fragment, and it's really the Congress after the Ram movement. It's the first time really the Congress has really spoken in the name of caste. It's a problem for the BJP or the RSS in a very simple way, because even if you look at the latest slogan, or even if you look at Savarkar, caste is seen to be a divisive issue to Hindu unity. And so therefore, it's really the odd man out here is really Hindutva politics, because for the rest of the country and the democratic process, caste is the basis for social justice, social equity, and I don't mean just reservations, and political power. And precisely because the BSP has now kind of vanished, that it matters. So I think that's the first point here. Secondly, I want to make a very quick point that the parliament inside has become depleted of deliberative power. And we have seen this in the last 10 years, that the bills have just been thrown inside. And as a result, 10 years after that, what you are really seeing is that it has been reduced to a symbolic stage for all the kind of spectacle that now we are witnessing.
While I agree with your second point, I will challenge you on your first one, and I want you to think about it while I go to Sandip. I think Hindol makes an important point that there was an old idea of the BJP's politics, but your last three elections show you, not the Lok Sabha elections this time as much, where the Dalits actually fragment and move away from the BJP, but in the assembly elections, they seem to return. Under Modi's BJP, the BJP has succeeded in wooing the Dalit voter, right? And data bears this
No,
out.
I mean, it's up for grabs is what I'm saying. I mean, the BJP has managed to get anything between 19 to 30%, depending on a particular election and a particular region, right? So it's not a done deal. It's not settled. And
all I'm saying is the old idea that the BJP is the Brahminical party. I mean, look at Haryana. Look at Haryana, for example. Rahul Gandhi set out to court the OBC voter, assumed that the Dalit voter would stay with it, and something very different happened in Haryana.
I think your point.
Yeah.
I should totally be clear. I'm not calling the BJP simply a forward caste party. I'm making a different point, which is that in Hindutva ideology, caste is seen to be vociferous, divisive of unity. And Hindutva is trying to create a kind of unified identity. And this is a problem because other social groups and other political parties see caste as the plank for their political mobilization.
Okay, now here is the point, Sandip. I'm going to read out two comments from our audience stream, which seem to echo, I don't know their politics, what Hindol was saying. Is this a self-indulgent conversation for those of us interested in history and politics? Shruti says, no, Ambedkar is not trivial. Saurav Vicious says, the elephants are fighting and the grass is being trampled beneath. There's no discussion on the issues of citizens, such as jobs, inflation, rural distress. Instead, the focus is on Adani, Ambedkar, and Savarkar. And Prasad adds to this saying, with economic development, politicians have to deal with huge budgets. The stakes are high, lucrative. Therefore, the real issues of the polity for which MPs and MLAs have been elected takes a back seat. Are both parties, Sandeep, making a mistake? They seem to be in some echo chamber of their own. If you went on the street, is who's George Soros, who's what is the Adani issue, what is actually the history of Ambedkar? The truth of it is, most people are going to say, I can't get a job. Yes, my onions cost more. I don't know. I don't get electricity. I want my children to go study abroad. So on and so forth, depending on which class segment you're talking about. Even Dalits today would care about social discrimination and not large esoteric debate around whether Ambedkar had more differences with RSS or with Congress.
I think, Barkha, very rightly, we have moved on to a lot of substantive issues, whether we agree, disagree with us, leaving aside the in the farce that is happening in Parliament. And I think we should focus on that discussion rather than the happenings of whether this parliamentary session or other. I totally agree on that. Before we move on to that, I think the big point is, we should, by discussing what has been happening in these few incidents, I think we'll be just glorifying that kind of stuff, the entertainment or what is being played out to the camera, and we really ought not to be doing so. So let's move on to the substantial part.
How do we ignore it? How do we ignore it?
See, you don't ignore it.
Look at the images. This is what's happened in Parliament. We have had our BJP and Congress delegations at the police station filing FIRs against other. This is what Parliament looks like today. Not today. The winter session has ended. This is what it's looked like in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, that is true, Barkha. And so when you said this session was a washout, you look back, practically every session has been a washout for something or the other. And I think that's a different debate, which at some point the nation must engage on. That we are electing these parliamentarians with so much money is being spent on each day of the parliament runs or doesn't run. And what is this happening? If I don't want to get sidetracked, because I also have my comments as to what's been views on what's been happening, not happening, and then it can get into a needless argument about whether Rahul Gandhi was right or wrong, or what you mentioned about Amit Shah's speech. I personally feel that if anybody has listened to his whole speech, this particular snippet, I think is anybody who believes or who is tweeting on that is really insulting their own and everybody else's intelligence. But that apart, I think the point which both Hindol and Shruti was making, Ambedkar is indeed a big issue today in the politics. And where it is arising from? It is arising from, as Shruti was saying in my less sophisticated political commentary, BJP had managed to do some kind of social engineering to move away from that image of being a banya or an upper class party to be able to get under its fold, cutting across caste lines as well as the different strata of society, everything. Now, Congress seemed to have found in the last Lok Sabha election a breach in that by talking of caste census, etc., and caused that breach, and thereby gained traction, which obviously got BJP worried, and they realized that only halfway through the 2024 elections, that was actually causing them damage. And since then, therefore, they have been on a massive correction mode, damage control or correction mode, and that's why you had in the last Maharashtra elections, Ek Hai To, all those slogans, everything, trying to get.
You also had Batenge to Katenge, and then the Prime Minister came with Ek Hai To Safe.
All those things to say that, try to get that coalition back, which seemed to have they've caused fissures, and similarly, therefore, on the Ambedkar issue. So what happened in this particular speech, I believe, if I, as you said, as somebody who supports in many ways that ruling dispensation, I thought it was a very masterful, if I listened to the entire thing, in fact, I tweeted as well, that Amit Shah has actually become a very consummate both parliamentarian and speaker, if you heard his speech for that length. Now, I think that obviously got the Congress worried, because he was very, very particular about picking on how Congress has been hypocritical about Ambedkar, and now they're trying to own Ambedkar. So they did I think whether the social media or IT cell, or this was a masterly tactical, everything is fair in love and war, as they would say, by taking this part out and trying to turn it on its head. What otherwise seemed at the end of the speech that Amit Shah had really played a masterly innings in that whole thing. And that's where the whole thing has turned around. And that is, but the way it is again getting played out, and if I were to take that yesterday is what happened in Parliament, that was, on this blocking Rahul Gandhi or something, this was a retaliatory move to, get even or whatever. I think that is all farcical. Only point I would make is where I have an issue. People are going to give Rahul Gandhi certificate that, he can't hurt a fly. He's forgiven is this thing. People like us who are slightly tilted towards the right, or more right, we are always accused of being uneducated, unsophisticated, unrefined. But a person like Rahul Gandhi, who's supposed to come from such an elite and refined sort of background, how can he go there and this old man, right or wrong, even if he's lying there and with a bleeding thing, just look at his body language to turn around and say, he hurt me. He tried to push me, and just turn around and go away. Is that civil? You can expect it, as I said, of rustics like us, but not for somebody who comes from such a noble lineage.
Let me play out a brief clip of this moment that you're actually referring to. Rahul Gandhi walks over when he's accused of pushing an MP of the BJP, and gets into words with Nishikant Dubey. This has been caught on camera from various angles. I'll just play that out for a second and come right back to the panel.
आपको शर्म नहीं आती है क्या राहुल क्या शर्म नहीं आती है क्या शर्म नहीं आती है गुंडा गर्दी करते हैं बूढ़े को गिरा कर इतना कौन सा गुंडा गर्दी
Right.
Look at the body language. Look at the way the person, he could have said anything, at least.
And Nishikant Dubey is also calling him a gunda.
Look at Nishikant Dubey, you can say is a ruffian or whatever you want to call, you can use whatever term against them, but not an old man.
I think what you're saying is that pedigree, or that Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi forgave the assassins of their father cannot be cited as a political argument. There's a kind of superiority in that.
Degree, right. Dubey, there's that everything. Okay, I will not. That's fine.
Let's get responses to what you've and also I have a different sort of political question, Nilanjan. Is the Congress in danger? And I know already that Shruti will totally disagree with this question, but I'm asking it nevertheless. Is the Congress in danger of getting pulled into ideological battles that don't really impact regular people? And let me give an example. Priyanka Gandhi's bags, right? She comes to Parliament with a Palestine bag. She follows it up when there's noise around it with a bag about Bangladesh minorities. What happens today? A BJP MP walks up to her. If we can come out of this and also show today's pictures, a BJP MP walks up to her and gifts her a 1984 bag with a reference, of course, to the anti-Sikh riots of 1984, which is a blot on the Congress's own record. Now, why do I give this as an example? My simple question is, Priyanka Gandhi has every right to carry whatever bag she wants to. She has every right as an individual to make a statement about Palestine, but she cannot be unmindful that when she brings the Palestine bag into Parliament, as a leading politician, it is going to be spoken about. But is this what the Congress wants people to be talking about right now? Either this or Adani. Are these issues that are helping the Congress politically?
First of all, on taking the Palestine bag, I think, the Congress we can definitely say that they have not very carefully thought through the whole thing. Like, as you said, that what would be the implications or the repercussion of going with the Palestine bag. She is not an ordinary citizen. I would be going around with a Palestine bag if I get the next time I go to Connaught Place, and I'll do it. I still, on certain occasions, I still wear.
I want to know who's making these bags. They should give credit to whoever this darzi is who's able to turn out a bag in every one day. There's a new bag. But sorry, go ahead. Not to trivialize.
These days, you have printers everywhere.
Any of you want to place orders, you can play. I make jute bags. If any of you want to place orders, I can give you.
I want my bag
Sure.
to say mojo mojo mojo.
I will give you. I will give you some mojo bags. Okay.
Thank you. But Nilanjan, more seriously, no, really, I really want to understand who these ideological battles are helping in real political terms. It's a very serious question.
I do not think that they are really helping the Congress. With emphasis on Adani. Really, it's been going over the people because I remember, in the 80s, as student activists, we used to shout slogans, Tata Birla ki ye sarkar nahi chalegi. So there has always been a kind of a slogan which has been there, and the people know that the government of the day is hand in gloves with the leading industrialists. You conduct a poll or a survey among people, people will know that in the last 10 years, the House of Adanis have benefited immensely. They know that otherwise people are fully aware that their wealth has increased manifold, and no reasons, they need not be told the reasons. So Rahul Gandhi is not getting any extra vote. He's only just possibly alienating a few potential allies. Palestine bags and these kind of statements, it's fine, good campus politics gimmicks. We were barred in JNU when we were students, to shout slogans. So from Sadar Bazaar, we went and bought 350 whistles. So late at night, after dinner, 9:30 p.m. onwards, a group of about 300, 400 people would go and start blowing the whistles right outside the Vice Chancellor's house. You fight these kind of draconian measures with very absurd techniques. That is what was being argued at that point. That is why we resorted to it. So it's really not helping. I think a much greater amount of thinking should go on it. Now, as far as the Amit Shah speech, I'll slightly disagree with both you and Sandip. Even the small clip which you played out, there are lots of things which we can say that Amit Shah is being very selective about it. Yes, Ambedkar did disagree with 370, but from a perspective which was his. When the issue had actually boiled out, he's the one who started talking about zonal plebiscite. Would the BJP, would Shyama Prasad Mukherjee or whoever was there at that point, they definitely did not agree. We have to accept the fact that Ambedkar is a very difficult character in our political history. We cannot do away with him because of the association with Congress, with the Constitution, even though the fact that he was not the one who wrote it. It was, in fact, the entire writing was done by a very good, very competent secretariat, which was headed by an officer, whose name is just slipped off my mind. But, he was the one.
I think Shruti is giving us. Shruti, you're giving us the name?
Rao.
Okay.
Sorry,
say that again.
B.N. Rao.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for reminding the name. Very important role. But anyway, what I'm saying is that Ambedkar cannot be done away with, but there were problems with Ambedkar. Congress had problems, Gandhi had problems, the Hindu Mahasabha had problems, Savarkar had, Golwalkar had. I can, actually, write possibly for 3 days trying to pull out, various instances when the Hindu Mahasabha, the RSS, the Jansan, they all had problems with Ambedkar.
But I think the point is that there would be as many.
Just one.
But there would be as many. Okay. All right. Okay.
Very brief point. In 1990, when VP Singh gave the Bharat Ratna to Ambedkar, as reporters, I know that to what extent was the BJP discomfited with it. I used to write on the BJP and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad at that time, and I know it because of personal knowledge about it. They were not at all very comfortable. They are not comfortable with large number of issues. I do not want to start listing them out, except possibly Manusmriti. So that has to be settled. That yes, Amit Shah spoke, but he spoke from his perspective, highlighting those aspects
fair,
of Ambedkar.
Fair.
The Congress also does the same.
Okay, Sandip, will you come in and then Hindol? Sandip? Yeah.
Hog any time. I agree with Nilanjan, but my submission would be that is the kind of response a responsible of opposition should have taken. Counter Amit Shah inside or outside the parliament on these facts. Also expose to them that what is BJP's has been BJP or RSS's problem. No, I'm not taking any sides. I'm saying why can't we have dialogues like that rather than turning it on its head to say, oh, Ambedkar ko insult kar diya, kal resign karo, 6 baje tak resign karo, and all those things. I think
There
that
is
is
a
where
trivialization. I do feel, Shruti, I know your hand went up. If it's okay with you, I'll just get Hindol and then come right to you. I do feel that if you listen to the 11 seconds, right? And Sandip, granted that this is what politics happens in politics. The BJP would have done this to the Congress has done it to the BJP. But we are not politicians here. None of us are politicians. If you look at those 11 seconds, you think, oh, Amit Shah was being cavalier about Ambedkar. But if you listen to what he says thereafter, he's actually listing maybe debatable points that he thinks point to a disagreement between Ambedkar and the Congress. Nilanjan makes the important point that as many cases can be argued from the other side. Hindol, I think the point you're saying it, how does it all matter?
No, I'm also saying to begin with that I do not accept Sandeep's point at all that, quote unquote, the right is rustic. I grew up seeing enough murderous communists in Calcutta who all spoke with a clipped Oxbridge accent. Don't tell me that the right is rustic.
No,
That's
no, no.
rubbish.
I
Don't
am
tell
right.
me that. I don't buy that.
I think he was being ironic. I think he was being ironic. I think he was being ironic. Okay, but
Let me
anyway.
make my point.
Okay.
Let me make
Okay.
my point. And I don't take Nilanjan's point. You know, the BJP may have been discomforted when the Bharat Ratna was given in 1990. Sure. Well, that doesn't explain why it took till 1990 under several Congress governments to not give the Bharat Ratna to Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So let's be consistent with our conversations. My fundamental point is this: Ambedkar will remain relevant because the only thing that can, and this is all research has shown this many times. Let me just mention one. 10 years ago, Chandrabhan Prasad, Devesh Kapoor, and a bunch of others wrote this paper in EPW, where they showed from research in eastern Uttar Pradesh that the biggest thing that attacks caste and caste-based discrimination was in fact upwardly mobile economics. Today, the Congress party does not even accept or doesn't even take any credit for any liberalization that they themselves did. Today, we know that the biggest thing that fights, and you're right in mentioning, yes, in 2024, some of the Dalit vote went away from the BJP, but it came right back in Haryana elections, in Maharashtra elections, because the only thing that fights caste the best, caste-based discrimination the best, is essentially upwardly mobile economics. This will only happen when people are frustrated with economics. Of course, there is a greater clamor for caste. And of course, everybody wants to keep alive this clamor for caste because it helps everybody. But in fact, Ambedkar economics, we always talk about Ambedkarite politics. But if we were to apply Ambedkarite economics more deeply and more resonantly in India, perhaps we would talk less about Ambedkarite politics.
Shruti? Yeah, Shruti, go ahead.
Flaws in that argument, but let me just start by saying, and these are the kinds of flaws that the Indian Constitution set out to correct. And this is the reason we are having this debate, because this debate has been set up as part of the parliamentary agenda to assess 75 years of the Indian Constitution. And let me just say that this kind of degradation that we are talking about parliamentary behavior today, I mean, I think it's a bit too late. Nearly, when you have a context in which nearly 150 MPs are disqualified in the last election, in the last parliamentary session, you do not have a series of debates on such massive legislative changes that have taken place in the last 7 to 8 years, then yes, you can say that this semi-farcical kind of over-dramatized politics has taken center stage. Now we are, after all, sitting here talking about a clash that has happened in Parliament, which we have not done in years. So I think that's just put everything in context. Secondly, I'm afraid I'm going to now speak in a kind of like slightly, assertive manner and as a teacher, and tell Hindol to read the basics of what the difference is really between caste and class, and the reason why India went down in the affirmative action way. Now that is now stitched into our fabric. There is no point thinking about.
Shruti, Chandrabhan Prasad is a Dalit public intellectual.
I am coming to that point. The third point is not about upwardly mobile BJPs alone. This is a debate that goes back to the Gandhi Pact to 1932, which is about Bahujan as in caste solidarity, or Hinduness, which is what Gandhi was also asking. So this is why Ambedkar himself will leave the Hindu fold on the eve of his death, because he would recognize that this is not possible. So let's just have, these are just facts of what has happened. There is no point saying upward mobility is going to lead in one way or another.
Okay.
Discrimination and political power is where the debate really is about. And I think, but I want to make a final point, which I think you started with, which I think should concern us, because I think it's a global problem. So you have a global problem in terms of how does kind of non-radical right politics now assert itself. Now, billionaires and political processes now are hand in glove. Let's just think about Elon Musk and what has happened in the Trump mandate, or the fact that the question is, how do you do this? I take your point that this may be inadequate, but I think the work is cut out for non-right-wing radical politics to think about a new idiom of politics, which, as you rightly say, this looks a bit too school campusy. It looks a bit like campus politics.
Yeah.
Let's
get. Okay. Guys, I
will give it to you back.
Shruti, I have to give him.
Literally one thing. It doesn't take away from the fact that all the other pre-existing democratic institutions have now gone in a particular way, which has also led to a constriction of public debate.
So this is a global debate, right?
Yes.
Media. The fact that a liberal media, just using a loose phrase here before we get trapped in nomenclatures, is actually not able to really influence a voter who hasn't already made up her mind. These are real questions for politics the world over. Let's come back to what we were talking about, Hindol. The floor is yours, then Sandip, and then we'll take final comments. Hindol.
Shruti Kapila can keep forcefully saying this, that, and the other, but the fact is Chandrabhan Prasad is a Dalit researcher. The fact is he went on the ground in eastern Uttar Pradesh. The fact is his paper showed what it showed. Now you can keep forcefully saying this, that, and the other. Those are polemical points depending on your political position, which is fine. I'm happy to, keep debating that as till cows come home. But the fact also is that at the end of the day, there has been a massive shift over the last 10 years in election after election towards Narendra Modi and the BJP. In fact, in 2024, the reverse happened. And in the last two state elections, that again swung towards the BJP. Now, we can keep saying that affirmative action is required. Yes, affirmative action is required. But Ambedkar economics teaches us that the fundamental efficiencies that are required for successful affirmative action can only be delivered in a particular kind of market system. And I would argue very strongly that Narendra Modi was able to capture these votes from the so-called lower caste sections because he was able to deliver a particular kind of welfare economics directly to the hands of people who had not received that welfare for a long period of time.
So I want to read. Can I read out a data point that you may all want to comment on? I just pulled it out. In Maharashtra, the Mahayuti's landslide victory included wins in 20 of the states, 29 SC reserved seats. Okay, 20 of the states, 29 SC reserved seats, as well as 59 of the 67 general seats where Dalits account for at least 15% of the population. So I think it's important to go back to facts. Facts are not opinion. This is how the Dalit seats, reserved seats in Maharashtra voted. 20 of the 29 went to the NDA in the Maharashtra Assembly election. So I just wanted to just put a fact out there that yes, the BJP has had this problem. Yes, the BJP lost some of that vote in Lok Sabha, and Maharashtra shows that vote returned to it. Sorry, I just wanted to share that. Hindol, if you want to just wrap up, and then I'll go to Sandip. And
no, I just feel that sometimes in these debates, it's almost like a generic is being drawn. So this happened in America, therefore this also must happen in different parts of the world. I think these are too simplistic. These arguments are way too simplistic. India is an extremely complicated country. It's a very large country. Our politics is very complicated. And often, if we drop our lenses on how we wish Indian politics ought to be compared to how or what data shows Indian politics to be, we would really come closer to the truth. And I reiterate, we really, apart from Ambedkarite politics, which is very important, I wish we would read a little more on Ambedkarite economics.
Okay, because these are last comments, maybe I'll come to Nilanjan, Shruti, and give Sandip the last word in that order. Nilanjan, go ahead.
Well, to take off on from where it was left, you're talking about the Dalit vote coming back to the BJP in Haryana and Maharashtra. I would say that the reason why the BJP has problems with Ambedkar, historically as well as ideologically, but it needs to appropriate Ambedkar just the way that it has appropriated every nationalist leader one can think of, except, of course, Jawaharlal Nehru. Maybe a day will come that even when Nehru becomes the BJP's, I do not know. It requires Ambedkar on its, posters because it has to secure the Dalits who have crossed over and
but politics is dynamic. What's wrong with that? You can't keep quoting
I'm
historically.
not saying it is wrong. I'm saying that it has to do it. So as an analyst, I'll say that they are hoisting somebody who's extremely problematic for them, who has been extremely problematic right from Pune Pact days. We can go back and talk about it, but I do not want to get into that. So I understand it fully, and our job is just to actually analyze and present this.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point, Shruti, that history has its own facts, but politics keeps changing, right? And hence, the BJP had this phrase, Mandal and Kamandal. For example, Rahul Gandhi, the Congress historically used to get the Brahmin and the Dalit vote. Now, Rahul Gandhi has begun quoting the OBC vote. This is politics. This is real politics. This has nothing to do with what happened historically, right? So I think Nilanjan makes the important point that sure, you can say that in the roots of the RSS, there is an ideological dissonance with what Ambedkar stood for. But in the politics of 2024-25, the BJP has managed to transcend that historical dissonance. And that's fair play.
I mean, I'm disputing any of the kind of changes in caste is not static. This is one of the reasons why it is so volatile politically, is because it is not static. And this is why those social coalitions have changed over time, which is why I set up by saying, well, actually, Ambedkar only really becomes a public figure, though he was always central in the mid 80s when Kanchi Ram founds the BSP, right, and reminds the country of this kind of very dubious pact which took place between Gandhi and Ambedkar. So the past is important because right from the beginning of the 20th century, our politics has been conducted in the historical register. If you look at all our political ideologues, whether it is Savarkar, whether it is Nehru, whether it is even Iqbal, whether it is Ambedkar himself, they all write histories. So the way Indians tend to communicate political visions is through the historical register, which is why these things are debatable. And this is why they become, as it were, part of a living conversation, like now that you can change your... But I think Nilanjan makes a fantastic point that one of the problems that actually the BJP has had is that its own pantheon has a very thin history. Its own ideologues do not really belong to the mainstay of the nationalist movement. And they have been hard at work, at least in the last 20 years, I would say. I don't think it's a phenomenon that goes further down. In the last 20 years, the BJP has been trying to kind of, appropriate all sorts of figures into its fold. But as these debates are showing that this is not a monopoly, and people, this will tell us in fact, it's telling us what the weather is, what is the temperature on that debate, and where things might be going. So I don't dismiss this at all. I take it incredibly.
Okay, Sandip, last word. I think there's a divergence on how much these debates are really going to translate into how people are perceiving it. I personally think there was a time when, people used to stay up to watch what was happening in Parliament, and those days are long gone. That's just That's just the hard fact. Nobody is watching parliament proceedings but politicians and journalists. And that in itself says something tragic.
So Parliament provides the trigger. I think that not Parliament, but these kind of actions provide the trigger for what will play out on the ground, how this will be amplified and taken forward. And here, I think we're in for some really, hard battle down the line, because BJP has been consciously, I'll pick that word from Nilanjan, trying to appropriate the Ambedkar legacy, irrespective of whatever. So that's why you have even the Constitution Day or the Ambedkar statue or, the Ambedkar Smaraks, etc., whichever has come. That's the point which Amit Shah has been trying to hammer in over there. Congress, I repeat, the cost of repetition, I think Congress thought, whichever their NGO advisors, etc., in 2024 election, they have got that edge. They sideways, they've gotten and found a breach that BJP's formula with this caste, talking of caste census, and then maybe the Dalits, etc., and being taken. BJP has very quickly responded and snatched it away, and they'll now go for the kill. And Congress suddenly find again the ground shifting or moving from under their feet. So there is a bit of desperation over there. I'm not too sure how far Congress, by this kind of retaliation which they have done, they will succeed. I think they've only made, certainly by taking on Amit Shah, I think they have now really, got the BJP very angry. If it was somewhere else, and therefore you'll see a lot more repercussion.
We're headed for a stormy few months of politics. We have 2 assembly elections coming up in Delhi and in Bihar, and all of this will remain theoretical unless it can actually translate into a communication line to the people of India. This cannot be a conversation of drawing rooms. Politics cannot be if these debates are part of our living history, as they should be, then both parties or both sides need to find a language that communicates to a larger section of people, and not just that one winter session of parliament, where the session ends, the headlines go, and the subject is forgotten. We leave it there. Dr. Shruti, Kapila, Hindol, Sengupta, to Nilanjan, Mukhopadhyay, and Sandip Ghose. Always a pleasure. Thank you to our audience, and see you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.